Rendón with us. As you know from the last time that she was here, Ere is the Vice President for Immigrant Justice at the Resurrection Project, TRP. The Resurrection Project, this year, the Elder Board voted that the Resurrection Project would become a partner ministry of LaSalle Street Church. That means that we will not only support them financially, but we will also support them with our service. And we'll hear about some service opportunities and service projects that we can do with them after she speaks. But let me just give you a little bit of her credentials in terms of the things that she's done. You know that she and I were in the CLA program at the University of Chicago. That's the Civic Leadership Academy. That's where we met. That was back in 2015, and we've stayed in touch since then. And ever since, everything has happened, particularly as it relates to immigrant rights. Ere has been all over the news, on national television, local television, so forth and so on. At the Resurrection Project, since joining in July 2010, Ere has held various roles, including Director of Organizing and Director of National Partnerships, before becoming the Vice President of Immigrant Justice. In terms of her legislative advocacy, she's played a key role in the passing pro-immigrant legislation in Illinois, including temporary visitor driver's license, the expansion of health care access for undocumented adults, and the creation of the Chicago Legal Protection Fund. Here to Work campaign, Ere leads TRP's effort on the Here to Work campaign, which advocates for work permits for all, as well as initiatives like Parole in Place, PIP. On the national recognition in 2024, she received the National Oatley Award, the highest recognition granted by the government of Mexico to individuals who have aided fellow Mexicans living abroad. She was also named the American Immigration Council's 2024 Immigration Impact Award winner. The last time that she was here with us, she was giving us a little bit of the boots on the ground insight in terms of how ICE has affected the Little Village community and the Pilsen community. Today, she is going to further elaborate on some of that and give us firsthand accounts on the devastation that has happened in that community, and then we'll end up with giving us an opportunity to be of service to this particular population. So without any further ado, please put your hands together for Ere Rendón.
Buenos dias. I'm a little nervous because I'm the main shower, something like that, right? Thank you so much, Randall, for having me. Thank you, LaSalle Street Church, for having me. I'm going to talk a little bit about my story first to introduce myself, and then I'll talk about TRP and what's been happening over the last year, and then have a call to action. So I am what we call dreamers, right? So folks that came to the U.S. before turning 16, so came in as kids, and who don't have permanent status in the U.S. So I actually came when I was 4 years old to meet my dad, who came when I was 8 months. And I grew up in a small town by Wisconsin, and sometimes you hear the word dreamers and you think it's these high school kids, and there are undocumented high school students, but I'm actually 40 years old. So not quite in high school anymore. Dreamers have been around for a long time, and we continue to not have access to be able to adjust our status. I have what's called DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which means that I have protection from deportation and I have a work permit, but I don't have a legal permanent residency, and I don't have an ability, for instance, to become a U.S. citizen. So every 2 years, I actually just went 2 days ago to go get my fingerprints taken, take my picture and things like that so that I can renew my work permit. So I am very grateful for DACA. It's a program that has allowed me to be able to form a career, to be able to help my family, but it is, obviously a little bit limits my ability to fully participate in civic life in the U.S. So that's a little bit about me, and I want to just say thank you so much for having me here. Last year I came, it was February, and it was a really difficult moment as we anticipated and we were trying to understand what was going to happen to immigrants as we were seeing an increased enforcement in our communities, and as we were seeing all of a sudden again having to do things like guardianship workshops where we sit down with undocumented parents and we talk to them about how they can set up a guardianship plan for their kids should they be detained, and just seeing a lot of undocumented students who, I was an undocumented student once too, who all of a sudden realized maybe that their path to college or their path to how they were going to be able to make a living was going to become harder. Families, again, talking about if we should go home, if we should stay, what's our emergency plans. And so when I came in February, I was heartbroken because I was seeing what was happening to my people. And I came and I sat in the same seat, I'm pretty sure, and the choir started singing, and I don't know if you all saw, maybe you didn't, but I started just bawling. And it was a very healing moment for me, and I've never been to a church quite like this one, and so thank you all. As you guys said in the song, right, in the hymn, you all helped me hold on for a little bit longer, because this year has been incredibly difficult. So in February, we actually, even though I was so scared, we kind of had no idea how bad it was going to get. And I don't think anything could have prepared us for how bad it was going to get. So you all probably saw and heard, right, about Operation Midway Blitz, which ended up arresting about 4,000 people in our communities. I think the most horrific part about it was the not knowing when it was going to happen, where it was going to happen, and the way that it would happen. We really started seeing at the beginning, a lot of trucks, right, being pulled over. So undocumented folks work in construction. We know that, and ICE and CBP, or Customs and Border Patrol, CBP, know that. And so what was happening was a lot of men were driving to work, and they had their trucks, and they would get pulled over. And as soon as they couldn't respond what their immigration status was, their windows would be broken, and they would be arrested. Oftentimes, because all of the cars that were all the CBP cars that were pulling folks over looked like civilian cars, they would get rammed over, and they would T-bone some of these cars. And then, as you all see, CBP really likes to lie. And then they would put in their arrests that our community members were actually crashing into them when it was really the other way around. My dad works in construction, like many undocumented men, and I think for seeing that happen and knowing that it can happen at any moment to your family I don't even know how to describe the feelings that every dad would have as they left to work. So we had to teach families things like how to turn on your locator and share it with your families so that folks could see if they got to work safely. That was sort of the beginning of the tactics, and then it expanded. There was quite a few arrests of moms walking their kids to school in Albany Park. There was an arrest of an entire family, a mom, dad, and a 6-year-old girl as they were leaving Aldi shopping center. There was, you all may have seen, the arrest of a family of 4 or family of 5 at the park downtown at Millennium Park. And then there was many, many arrests at things like Home Depots where folks were waiting for work. Many arrests in the suburbs of folks driving to work, of folks at grocery stores because they know where we shop. So they were going to like Fiesta Market, right, in Bloomington, and would arrest folks as they were going in or out of shopping centers. So all of these arrests are actually illegal. It is, in fact, illegal to just ask anybody what their immigration status is and to detain them without knowing what their immigration status is. And we have an actual, a consent decree in Illinois that is supposed to prevent that. But more than 4,000 people were arrested without any warrant. And that happened because, the Supreme Court in September ruled that it was okay to arrest people based on how, based on their race, based on the language that they spoke, and based on how they were dressed because of their employment. And so that it just kind of spread out throughout the country. It started in LA and eventually reached here, and then we saw it happen right in Charlotte, we saw it happen in New Orleans, and then most recently in Minneapolis. And then what folks, I think the other challenges that we had as well was that the streets was, what was happening in the streets was very horrific and very scary, and folks were staying home, and folks were trying to figure out how you still can't stay home forever though, because you still have to go to work, and so folks were trying to figure out what was the safest way to be able to continue to do this, to live their lives in the midst of danger. But what a lot of folks didn't see is the changes that happened inside of the court system. So bond was eliminated. So for almost every single person, right? So bond was eliminated for anybody that's called EWI, or entry without inspection. So folks who cross the border like me, or folks who, or like the majority of undocumented immigrants, although it's, there's quite a few immigrants that came in with a visa and overstayed. It's mainly Latino immigrants that cross the border, and so it is a tactic that is used to specifically to target Latino immigrants. So where we used to be able, if somebody was detained, we'd be able to go to court and ask for bond. Bond was eliminated. It continues to be eliminated. And so that means that now we have to file habeas which is a completely different system to be able then to see if we can get somebody bond. But now in the Fifth Circuit Court, habeas no longer exists either for this population. And it'll eventually make its way up to the Supreme Court, and I think we all know what we can expect when it gets there. So it is very possible that very soon even habeas be eliminated as an option for us to help folks get out. There's also a lot of new detention centers that are opening up, and they're opening up weekly and opening up throughout the country. And so what ends up happening is somebody is detained in Illinois, but they will be moved across the country. So they may be in Indiana tomorrow, and then in a week they might be in Texas. And then in 2 weeks after that, they might be in Kansas, because the organization internally is actually really poor. And whenever somebody is moved, it also makes it more difficult for an attorney to be able to continue to represent that client because of just jurisdiction issues. And so so that's the movement. It was a huge problem. And also, as they open up new detention centers, they would open them up so fast that they wouldn't always have an ability for us to communicate with folks. So if we were able to find somebody, an attorney, they opened up a new detention center. That new detention center may or may not have a secure line for that individual to be able to talk to their attorney. All of this is, again, breaking laws, but it didn't quite seem to matter this last year. I kept thinking a lot about this last year, because I know and I think we know and understand that immigrants are not the only folks who are being affected by the current administration, and immigrants are not the only folks who have been discriminated against throughout history in the U.S. But what I do think about immigrants, because I see my family and I see the folks that I work with, is that immigrants just love America. Like, we love this place. We know we come here with so many hopes and dreams, and we're able to realize many of our hopes and dreams, even if we can't realize them all. So my 70-year-old undocumented parents, who are still undocumented, even though they never went to school, even though they never had documents, were still able to buy a home, were still able to put their kids through college, were still able to just live a life. And I think the most heartbreaking piece of the last year was that it became almost impossible to see that as a possibility. I want to talk to you guys about 3 stories. The first one's pretty heartbreaking, but the last 2 are good, so that we can get kind of an understanding of the folks that were impacted. So TRP, a little bit about what our role is in this space, is we lead a lot of the work around access to counsel. So we provide representation. We do have attorneys. We provide free representation to folks that are going through deportation. And we serve as the organization that coordinates all legal services through the nonprofit sector. So you all may have seen that there's one hotline in Illinois. So if somebody gets detained, you can fill it in. You can call that hotline, and then you get on a list for us to try to get you an attorney. And the hotline is run by one of our partner organizations, Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, and then we run the operation of trying to coordinate all the legal services. There's also a website, illinoisimmigrationinfo.org, in which you can fill out a form if you're seeking to be able to get representation. So we get to hear all of the stories. In 2025, we had over 1,750 folks call us and seek an attorney. We are able to place about for either pro se representation, so just helping them kind of understand what their rights are, what they can do, what they cannot do, or for full scope representation, which is trying to get them a full attorney. We're only able to help about 200 a month. And in the midst of Midway Blitz, there were about 200 arrests a day. So we were not able to help everybody. The first case I want to tell you about is Federico. We most recently just lost his case a couple weeks ago. Federico's 22 years old. He's Mexican. He came to the U.S. after his mom died from cancer. And while he was in the U.S., his dad was murdered in front of his younger siblings. And so he ended up bringing his younger siblings to the U.S., the 15-year-old now and a 16-year-old now. And Federico was on his way to work when he was pulled over, and he was T-boned. And ICE actually tweeted about his case, lying about his history and lying about what happened in the arrest. Federico's habeas was denied. Federico's bond was denied. But we believe that Federico has a strong asylum case based on the fact that his uncle has been kidnapped and his dad was murdered. But unfortunately, we lost his asylum case as well. So Federico spent months in jail and without an ability to say goodbye to his 2 younger siblings who are now left here to be taken care of by their tia. But I'll talk to you guys about a few good stories. Freddy has been in the U.S. for about 20 years. He's from Puebla, Mexico. He was arrested also on his way to work, pulled over, also arrested without a warrant. When he was in Broadview, which you all may have heard is a processing center, he was there for 5 days, even though there's no showers, there's no beds, and he was forced to sign his voluntary departure. Fortunately, we were able to intervene on time and place him with one of our attorneys, and we were able to cancel that deportation, and Federico got out, and Federico's at home with his wife and his kids. Esperanza was at a Home Depot. She was trying to get work for the day when I showed up and arrested her. Esperanza had just actually had a kid. Her baby was about 3 months old. and Esperanza was actually going to be deported. She was going to accept voluntary departure this coming Wednesday because she's from a country that's not accepting flights, and so so DHS was going to deport her to another country, and so she decided that she was going to sign voluntary departure so she could choose which country she would get deported to. However, a miracle happened, and she's been on the list to be able to check if her arrest was illegal, because it's warrantless and it's one by one, and it's a very slow process, and you're just hoping that they can get to that case, that the DHS and the attorneys will get to your case before you're deported. And she was actually on the list up for Friday, and so she got released Friday afternoon and made her way home. And so there are really great stories of how much of the work that we're able to do to make sure that folks' rights are respected and that folks can get home. And this week was also a good week because Secretary Noam was fired, right? And it looks like we may have reached a peak of arrests in January because February was a lot lower on the per-day arrest. And immigrants are still here. Maybe they got 4,000 of us, but the rest of us are here. And I used to think that our spirit was, this immigrant spirit was being crushed. And I think there's a lot of pressure that continues to be crushed. But I think we're learning that we can live with the bruises and still go on. And I think folks are feeling the amount of energy and the amount of support that is happening. When I went to the last No Kings March, and there were, hundreds of thousands of people marching throughout the country, most people that didn't look like me, it was one of the most healing moments that I had gone through, just like it was when I was at church here. And so want to end with a couple of the call to actions that we have, and hopefully we can continue to bring more calls to action to all of you. They're pretty simple. There's some simple ones, and then there's one that hopefully will be more of a service that LaSalle can take. So the first one is to call your senators. As you may know right now, to call our senators. As you may know right now, there's a temporary shutdown, a partial shutdown, of DHS. It doesn't mean that arrests are not happening because ICE has $170 billion, so they can continue to operate, but we don't think that they need any more money, especially as the way that they have been operating. And so we're asking you to call Senator Durbin and call Senator Duckworth and continue to demand that there be no more funding for ICE, and that they use this as an opportunity to be able to make sure that ICE starts obeying the law. The second call to action is No Kings March. The next one is on March 28th. So you're all invited to attend. All of that is run through Indivisible Chicago, in which we're partners with them. And so make sure that we see you there on March 28th. And the third one is a little bit more intense, which is canvassing. So in the fall, we have to go around immigrant neighborhoods and immigrant suburbs and towns and put up Know Your Rights signs, as well as the hotline signs and information about how you can request an attorney if you need one. And so we have yard signs and we have posters, and we did a lot of work, and you couldn't go to a single immigrant neighborhood and not see them everywhere. But it's winter and the plows kind of tore them down. And so we're reorganizing a canvassing opportunities for folks to go into immigrant neighborhoods and re-put up all of these signs. But we're waiting to make sure it's not going to snow anymore, so we're restarting that the last week of March. And so we'll be in touch about when we can organize something. What lots of folks did were that they would get together either with a group of friends or a group of their family, and they would go pick a neighborhood. You pick up your signs, then they go around and put all of these signs up in these neighborhoods. Talk to folks at the stores about what their rights are as private, as kind of private establishments. And then many folks would pick a restaurant to eat at and eat there because our restaurants were hit really hard. So those are our 3 calls to action. And you can also go onto our website, TRPIJ or trpimmigrantjustice.org, and sign up to get our newsletter. We do frequent calls to action, some of them simple, like making a phone call or sending an email to your elected, and some of them much more that takes you into the community and has us help you. And you can help immigrants in the communities where we live. So again, thank you so much for having me here. And I just want you all to know again that this place showed me so much love last year. And I love coming here. And I hope to be here soon again. And hopefully it's better times. And thank you, Randall, for always thinking of us. And thank you all for your time. Gracias.
Yes, let's give her a great big round of applause.